The cabin wasn't much to look at from the outside: weathered cedar siding, green tin roof, and a wraparound porch that creaked if you stepped too close to the railing. But it was mine. My grandfather had built it by hand in the 60s, back when the lake was nothing more than a hidden fisherman's paradise. Now the place had been swallowed up by a sprawling lakeside HOA. Their pristine homes all looked like they'd been printed off the same blueprint: identical decks, manicured lawns, approved mailboxes. And the HOA president, a sharp-chinned, sharp-tongued woman named Karen Milford, ruled over it with the kind of zeal usually reserved for cult leaders. I wasn't part of the HOA. My cabin predated it, grandfathered in under county law. But that never stopped Karen from trying to rope me in. First it was letters, then fines, then outright threats. My lawyer assured me she didn't have a leg to stand on. Still, she loved to test boundaries. Which made her timing all the more disastrous. Because this weekend wasn't about fishing or peace and quiet. It was about meeting a man who could decide the future of her little empire: Daniel Reeves, State Attorney General. He had chosen my cabin as a discreet location to discuss the ongoing investigation into HOA corruption across the state. As I set the coffee pot on the table and laid out the documents he'd asked to see, I had no idea Karen was already marching down the gravel drive, clipboard in hand, ready to make her biggest mistake yet. It started with a rattle at the front door. I frowned. Nobody ever came here unannounced. Before I could react, the knob turned and the door swung wide open. In stomped Karen. Short blonde bob, oversized sunglasses even though it was cloudy, and an expression like she'd bitten into a lemon. Her HOA clipboard was clutched tight, stacked with violation slips printed on bright pink paper, the kind that screamed shame when taped to your door. She didn't bother to greet me. Instead, she walked straight past, scanning the cabin like a landlord on eviction day. Unregistered guests, she muttered, scribbling. Possible zoning infractions. Occupancy violation. You can't just use this place like some hotel. Good morning to you too, Karen, I said, trying not to laugh. She ignored me, turning the corner into the dining space where Attorney General Reeves sat calmly at the table. He was a tall man, shoulders squared, his navy suit a stark contrast to the cabin's rustic wood. His jacket was neatly folded over the chair, sleeves rolled up as he scanned a stack of files. He looked up slowly at the sound of her heels on the floorboards. Karen froze. And, who are you? Reeves's voice was calm, even warm, but carried an authority that made the air shift. Ma'am, he said, leaning back in his chair, before I answer that, I'd like to ask you something. Why are you entering this property without a warrant, without permission, and without knocking? Karen blinked, clearly not used to being questioned. I'm the HOA president. This cabin falls under my jurisdiction. I can conduct inspections whenever I see fit. His lips curved into the faintest smile. Your jurisdiction? Yes, she said, planting her hands on her hips. The rules are very clear. We don't allow unregistered rentals, overnight guests without approval, or, she gestured vaguely toward him, outsiders. Whoever you are. That's when he calmly reached into his briefcase and produced a black leather folder. With deliberate slowness, he flipped it open and set it on the table. The embossed gold seal of the state glimmered under the overhead lamp. My name is Daniel Reeves, he said evenly. Attorney General for the state of, well, let's just say your state. And unless I'm mistaken, you've just admitted to trespassing. The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked less like the tyrant of the lake and more like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Reeves steepled his fingers and leaned forward. Let's review. You entered a private residence. You did so without knocking. You claim to have authority you don't actually possess. And you're attempting to enforce rules that don't apply here. Karen sputtered. But I'm the HOA president. I make the rules. No, Reeves corrected, his voice as sharp as a gavel, the state makes the laws. And HOAs are not exempt. In fact, he tapped the folder, your HOA is already under investigation. Harassment. Misuse of funds. Illegal fines. Even surveillance without consent. Today's little performance just gave us a brand new count to add, unlawful entry. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's outrageous. I was protecting community standards. Community standards don't trump state law, Reeves replied. What you did today is a crime. And since you did it in front of both a property owner and the Attorney General, well, let's just say this won't look good in court. I sipped my coffee, hiding a grin. For once, I didn't have to argue, defend, or explain. Karen had walked herself straight into the lion's den. Within the hour, the county sheriff's deputy arrived, summoned by Reeves with a single phone call. Karen tried to talk her way out of it, first with excuses, then with threats, then with tears. None of it worked. The deputy took her statement, handed her a notice, and escorted her off the property. As her car sputtered away up the gravel drive, the Attorney General closed his folder with a satisfied snap. Well, he said, I think that was more productive than I expected. Shall we get back to business? I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. You don't know how long I've been waiting for that moment. The rest of the evening passed in peace. The sun dipped low over the lake, painting the water in streaks of gold and crimson. For the first time in years, I felt like the cabin was mine again, safe from her clipboard and pink slips. And though Reeves and I had serious matters to discuss, I kept chuckling every so often. Because no matter what came next, I'd always remember the day Karen stormed into my cabin, ready to play sheriff, only to find herself face to face with the state's top lawman.